I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Scooter Mart. At Scooter Mart, you can buy, sell, or rent a bike with them. Make sure you head over to their Hamilton location on Church Street or their Paget location on Lovers Lane, or visit them on www.scootermart.bm. Hey guys, and welcome back to Hustle Her Podcast. As always, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Big shout out to our season sponsors, 59 Front, as well as Brown & Company. New to our sponsor list is Scooter Mart, as well as the Women's Resource Center. We want to thank all of them for coming on board and making this podcast episode so impactful to those of you who are listening today. So today is really special to me, and it's something that I'm really excited to bring to everyone. When we look at the statistics for gun violence in Bermuda, you really can't find a lot about it online. But what we've come to realize is that over 65 people have died as a result of gun violence in Bermuda to date. Someone who's very passionate about that, who has significant intimate relations with gun violence and loss and grief, is my next guest, who is Miss Nicole Fox. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming here today. I genuinely appreciate it, and being so open and willing to have this conversation. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So before we jump right in, I'm going to ask you a few questions, just kind of get to know you a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that comes to mind is what you answer. Okay? Call them quick rapid fires. All right. So tell me your favorite color.
Black.
I love that. That was so easy too. Most people are like, black. That worked.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, I know it just passed, but your club match team.
St. George's.
Oh, Nicole.
I know.
Oh no.
That's why I've been wearing black for a while.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, so tell me your favorite time of day.
Lunchtime.
Lunchtime. Why lunch?
It's time to eat. Well, that came from my years of competing.
Okay.
And I was always hungry around lunchtime.
Okay.
So I just come back to have.
Love that. What's most important to you?
My children.
Okay. And then what do you like to do for fun?
Gym.
Yes.
So
I'm new on this gym journey. I wouldn't say it's fun yet, but we'll get there. At some point we'll get there. Yeah. All right. What's the biggest learning experience you've ever had?
Dealing with adversity.
Okay. And then what would you say is your biggest strength?
God.
I love that. All right. So I invited you here today to talk about one, about you are the co-founder of Mothers on a Mission. And so we're definitely going to get into that in a little while, and you know how that started, but specifically to talk about your journey as a mom, but also dealing with the death of your son Rico. So in January 23rd, 2013, your son was passed away due to gun violence in Bermuda. Tell me about that day that you found out what happened to your son.
It was Wednesday. Laying in bed. Rico came up to the house, my part of the house, and he said, "I'm going to chill out downstairs at my mother-in-law's house." She was going away, so the boys should spend a lot of time up there instead of downstairs. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to chill out." So he went. After that, Skya and Zachary, my other two young ones, they came up. I'm like, "We're going to chill out down the house." So I'm saying, okay, well, all my boys in the house. They're down there chilling. I'm laying there watching TV, and I got a phone call from Rico's dad, and he's like, "What you do?" And I'm like, "Why?" you know. And he says, "Rico has been shot. Rico and Hailey has been shot out the shop." And I'm like, "Why is Hailey out tough shoes?" Because Rico used to say all the time, "I'm out the shop." And he used to always be out on tough shoes, out on Court Street.
Yes.
I'm like, why is Hailey out there? So I'm not thinking Balvin's, and I just stay right on the corner from Balvin's. So And just when he said that, I heard this loud scream. And it was Hailey's girlfriend. And I came outside because Hailey and I stayed right next to each other. It was like just a close neighborhood. And so I went down the house and I banged on the door to my other son. So I'm like, Rico has been shot. So we all just ran out to Balvin's and I'm not sure which one, whether it was your daddy or your
Would have been my
uncle.
dad at the time.
Or your dad at the time looked at us and said, he's going to the hospital. You know, he's already gone to the hospital. So I'm like, is he breathing? And he's like, yes. So it's like, okay. My other sons decided not to come down to the hospital. So I went down to the hospital and on the back of a bike, which I didn't think I was going to make it. It was Hailey's girlfriend at the time. And she was so, we were both just out of it. And once we got down there, you know, they wouldn't let us in. And then eventually they let us into a little private room. And we sat there and we waited. Hailey's family was there. My family was there. And when the doctors came in, they came in with Hailey first. Doctor said, you know, family of Hailey, all the bridge, she didn't make it. The whole room went up in an uproar. And I remember looking at Miss Otterbridge and saying to her, oh, what happened to Farbin? Because they talked about Otterbridge, what happened to Farbin? And she looked at me, she held my hand and she said, no news is good news, Nick. So I said, okay. Not sure how much longer after that. A little short white man. With his hair wrapped, like, you know, in a sergeant's uniform, came on. So I don't know if you know the extent. And I'm like, okay, he's starting to talk. The other one didn't go through with this, with the extent of Hailey's interest, but he's saying, so I'm thinking he's going to say he survived or he's fighting. So he took 3 bullets point blank to his chest, and he did not make it. Don't remember too much after that. I don't remember too much after that.
I'm so sorry to take you back to that moment, but I appreciate you being willing to discuss that with us. But when we think of, you know, so many people so far removed from that moment, right? They don't understand the families that are affected by it. And what I wanted to do here with you today, and for everyone listening or watching, I did ask permission to have this conversation with you and to ask these questions. But I want people to understand the intimacy of those moments, that it's people that are so close and they have families, and you're a mom who lost her son in that moment, and life for you changed.
It's never been the same.
Wow.
Nothing is the same. Absolutely nothing. I can't even say I have a feeling that's the same. My love and respect for others are not the same. I thought I couldn't love my children anymore. But once I lost one, the love for the ones I have left is going tremendous. It is a catch-22. Because in one breath, you're like waiting for the other shoe to drop, loving on them so much that you don't want to lose them, but in reality, it wasn't your fault that you lost one in the first place. The respect I have for people, when I look at people today, my whole outlook on people in general, human beings, have changed. I'm more conscious on how I treat people today. Everything has changed. I will never forget one time I was using the bathroom. And I was so mesmerized by the toilet paper coming off the roll. Like, that was so enlightened to me, and I couldn't understand why. But it just shows that nothing is the same anymore. I never understood. I mean, nobody just takes advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But this was rolling off, and it was like, I never looked at it. I just took it for granted. It's just toilet paper. Yeah. But that's how deep everything changed with me.
On that day, after that day?
After that day, nothing remained the same.
Yeah. So I want to take it back a little bit because most people would assume that the death of a son in that way is a major life-changing event and that's enough to last someone for a lifetime. But you've also had your own journey prior to that date. So walk me through a little bit about young Nicole and some of the things you kind of went through growing up before Rico's death.
Yeah, I was a wild one. And some might say I still am, but on the good side of wild today. I got involved with drugs at a very young age, very promiscuous. Yeah, I would say that when I look back at age 21, I was a full-blown addict.
Wow.
I smoked and got high every day at age 21.
Wow.
Whereas I thought I was a functioning addict. But as years went on, I really wasn't.
Okay.
I couldn't work. I lost jobs. That was my full-time job.
It consumed your life.
It consumed everything.
Wow.
I had given my mother custody of my kids. I could not raise them. I was in the grips of my addiction, very bad, to the age of 38.
Wow. And what was that pivotal moment where you decided to come out of your addiction?
I wouldn't say I did. I think God had a different plan.
Got it.
You know, I remember wanting something different for myself. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
I remember one day having my house full of people with drugs and alcohol. I remember having everything I needed. And I remember going into my bathroom and crying and asking God for help. I remember reaching out and saying, I don't want this anymore. And I remember crying. They was knocking on the door, Nick, you all right? You all right? And I'm like, yes, I'm okay. Just leave me alone. And I had that personal talk with God.
Wow.
And of course, I came back out and ran on about my journey. And a couple of days or weeks later, the bailiffs came. And I thought they just was taking my husband, but they took me too.
Oh, wow.
And that was a change. That was something that I think God took me to a place where I couldn't get clean outside of jail. So I took me away from it and saved my life.
Yeah. It's one of those things where people get angry when people say this, but sometimes it's everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. Now, prior to that, I had been jailed already. Before that, too.
Okay.
And that didn't change me.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, I remember going to jail this time, falling on my knees and crying like I've never cried out to God in my life. And when I got up off the floor, I had such a freedom that even though I was behind bars, I was the happiest person going. I had this joy in my heart. It was like, whoa, I feel so happy right here.
Yeah.
I was scared to leave because what was out there, I didn't want to go back to.
How was the recovery process of coming off of drugs?
The recovery process for me, I done a 12-step program for many years. I hung with people, I talked, I cried with people that were struggling with the same disease as me. I sat on committees, I done conventions. I just dug right in to a 12-step program. And it was beautiful. No, I don't do it today, but that's a different story again. After Rico, I needed to go right to the source.
Yeah. Got you. So Rico was a turning point for you in that
Rico was definitely a turning point for me.
Okay.
I mean, not only spiritually, but personally. I had to figure out who I was outside of
Mm-hmm.
Rico Furbett's mom in order for me to be healthy enough for Zachary and Skya.
And how do you maintain your sobriety after something like that? Because that's so traumatic that one would almost understand having a moment of, you know, going back into a lifestyle where you were able to cope, right? In a situation like that. Like how did you maintain during those times?
I just remember that night I had no desire to use. So this is where I'm trying to tell you how God is real.
Mm-hmm.
God removes desires that I had no desire to use that night. And if I didn't have the desire, if the initial shock of Rico's death did not send me back, then the next day I had no excuse.
Yeah.
The next day I had no right to, because now I've got all the tools.
Yeah.
I can get the help I need. So if the initial shock didn't do it, then the next day I had no right to do it.
That's significant because, especially when you're looking at it from that perspective, right? Because in that moment, like I'm sure most people will be like, how do you even rationalize or think that that's okay? You know, not okay, but like, okay, cool. If I didn't do it last night, I definitely shouldn't be doing it today because that's such a traumatic event in your life.
And God also showed me that that night, about 3 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night and I doubted myself as a parent.
Wow.
I woke up and I started crying. I'm like, why aren't I filled with depression, anger, hatred, sleepless nights? Why don't I have the look I see in all of Rico's friends and family? Why don't I have this? Did I not love my son? So I doubted myself, and God spoke, and I heard his voice so clearly. He said that night, you asked me of two things, a forgiving heart and a peace of mind.
Wow.
And I have granted you both. Don't look back. And that's when it reminded me, after the doctor had said what he had said, that Rico didn't make it. I remember coming to, and I was sitting on the floor by the elevators in the hospital. And I do remember asking God for a forgiving heart and a peace of mind.
Yeah.
And he have granted me both.
Yeah. And to be able to do something like that in that moment takes a significant amount of strength when you really think about it. Because when someone does you wrong, or your child or your family member or anyone wrong, almost immediately you want to get back at the person who did that wrong to the person that you love. So to, in that moment, be able to ask God for forgiveness shows a significant amount of strength on your behalf, because who would have ever thought that that's what it would have been the first ask? I
didn't know why I asked, but that was the first thing that I ever asked God for.
Wow.
That was my immediate response.
Yeah. And so when you have a son who passes away from gun violence in such a tragic manner, right? Immediately, you know, obviously people, they come around, right? And they're there for you, and, you know, their shoulders are crying on and all of that. What happens after some time has passed? And does it dwindle? Do people still check on you? Like, how does that grieving process, how does that work? And I'm sure it's still going on today, but how was that for you?
When the phone calls stopped coming, that's when the reality really kicked in.
But how long would you say that took?
I can't remember.
Okay, that's fine.
But it was a process, because bit by bit it windows off. It wasn't like in 3 weeks nobody called. It was just a gradual. And I get it. I understood it. But it taught me that now I have to lean on a power that has some power. I can't depend on people to make me feel good.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to focus and survive without I'm a codependent. So that's when I got a stronger relationship with God. I had to go to some power that had some power, because I was weak.
Yeah.
I was done.
Yeah.
And no offense to anyone, but a lot of people that were there to support me had never been through what I had been through. So they didn't know what to say. You just don't know. It's really nothing you can say.
Yeah, it's the truth. Yeah.
You know, and I didn't want to be pitied, but I saw pity in their eyes for me. And I didn't want to fall as nobody's victim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm victorious,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I had to turn around a lot of things that people thought what grief looked like.
Yeah.
Grief looked like this, and that's how I had to act.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to be. I didn't want to be pitied.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yes, I dealt with a tremendous loss, but I'm not. I lost Rico. I'm not losing myself. You took him, but you're not taking me.
Yeah.
I had to look at things so much differently. Like, no, I had just got clean. I am free from drugs. I had got clean. I had lost my dad. I got clean in 2006. 2006, my dad died.
Wow.
2009, the exact same date of my dad's death, my only brother was killed in a bike accident.
Jeez.
2011, my mom died. 2013, Rico died. So I had back to back tragedies, and I was clean through it all. So I wasn't letting no one take away. Let me show you something. When I stopped using for a couple of days, I saw a little light. It was a tiny light. And each day I didn't use. And I asked God for guidance. That light got bigger and bigger. So I was already walking in light.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowing anybody to take me back to the darkness that God had just delivered me from. Yeah. That was dark. Yeah. That world of addiction was dark. I would rather live without my son and walk in light than to live with my son and go back to addiction.
Wow. That's significant.
So I'm quite okay with allowing God to use me.
So it's amazing to me that you said over those 5 years, all of that happened post-addiction, right? And then we fast forward a few more years and we have Zachary Fox, and then we also have Clark Fox. Walk me through what happened with Zachary and then Clark.
2019, I had was laying in my bed and we had heard all these gunshots. I jumped up and I ran because my house is here and Zachary's and my mother-in-law and Sky stayed downstairs, and I ran and I banged on Zachary's outside door. He said, "I'm all right, Mama." I ran downstairs to Sky. "I'm all right." I said, "Okay." That was in 2019. Called the police. 18 bullets were fired into that house.
This is your home?
Yes.
Wow.
Where my son, my mother-in-law, and my other son stayed. I stayed on the little side with my husband. And that was very disturbing. Yeah. All I could think about was, I can't bury another son. That was 2019. 2020, I am doing a project for my grandson over a friend of mine's house, getting a project ready for Father's Day. No, Valentine's Day in February. And I had just taken him home. And went over to my friend's house to get this project going. And then I got a phone call, and it's Zachary, and it's saying, "Mom, I've been shot." I don't remember too much after that either, but I do know that he did survive. He got shot in his shoulder. Once again, my house was sprayed with bullets. I had made an appeal to let me take my son out of her, this second attempt on his life. And well, needless to say, that didn't happen. But he survived.
Yeah.
Clarky came home to be with his brother. 2 weeks later, he was shot out on Court Street and killed in March 2020. So now at that time, I became very angry. I was angry with God.
Let me get you some tissue. Sorry. Thank you.
After, dealing with Rico was one thing. I'm okay.
Sure.
I'm good. I'm good. After dealing with Rico and basically depending and leaning on God, right now I'm mad at him. Clark's death took a heavy toll on me. A very heavy toll. So I vented. Me and God had it out. We had it out.
Sometimes you have to.
Then afterwards he said, you okay now? You got it all out your chest? You got work to do.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. This is my cross to bear. But I do know that I don't bear it alone.
Yeah.
And that's what sustains me. I know that I don't bear this cross alone.
Yeah.
He's with me 100. And when it gets too heavy, I know where to go.
And that's to
God. And that's to,
I mean, Nicole, if out of everything that we've spoken about so far, one of those things is enough to take anybody out, in terms mentally, physically, justification of the lack of wanting to do anything in life anymore. Any of the things that you've been through, just one would be justification for that, right? And so when we look at all the things that you've been through and you're still so strong and willing to share your story and willing to be able to come and speak about it, like how, and we know we spoke about God, but outside of that, like what keeps you going every day?
My grandbabies and my other children. And I have this awesome husband. Hey, I have the best husband ever. I know who you guys' husbands are, but I know that God has blessed me with an awesome man.
I love that.
Who has stood beside me. We have been through everything. He's also a recovering addict. We met in addiction. We married. We baptized together. We came through. He was right there when we buried Rico. Like he was Rico's dad. Like, his stepdad. Him and Rico's dad are very close. They've got they have an awesome relationship.
Yeah.
And 7 years later, I'm right there with him to bury his son.
Wow.
So we've both experienced burying sons to gun violence. So he is one of my biggest supporters.
Yes.
He is one of my biggest supporters. And he always says, and even Rico's dad says, they didn't know what they would have done. They couldn't have been asked for a better person to go through with me other than, and I think I'm like, whoa, like if it wasn't for you guys, where would I be? But so I have a good support system. And another thing that keeps me grounded and keeps me going is that I wasn't just Rico Farbett's mom. It was Zachary Fox's mom and Skya Farbett's mom. And they deserved a healthy mom. If I would have given up and allowed Rico's tragedy to destroy me, I don't know where those boys would be today.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been, look what you done to my brother, but now look what you done to my mama.
Wow.
And that's a whole different level when it comes to a son and his mom. So I knew I had to be healthy enough to at least help them navigate through adversity.
Yeah.
And so every morning I woke up, I knew that those boys were my main focus. And now they have kids and my grandchildren are everything too.
Aww. How many grandchildren do you have?
2. I have an 8-year-old and a 2.5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. That's amazing.
Oh, 1 boy and one little girl. First girl since me.
I was just gonna say, it's not like you had little boys in the family, so I'm glad you got the girls now.
Yeah. So between my husband and I, we have 5 boys.
Oh my goodness.
No girls. I didn't have any sisters. My husband doesn't have any sisters.
So she's spoiled then. She's super spoiled.
She is.
She deserves it.
Yeah, she deserves it.
All right. That's okay.
Yeah.
So when we think of, post, Rico, post Zachary, post Clark, do you ever find yourself, I guess, questioning your how you parented or anything that you could have done differently? Is there a lot of guilt or shame around their deaths and or what happened to Zachary in those moments, and how do you kind of deal with that?
Okay. Yeah, of course, I was not the best parent. I was riddled with addiction. If I could have been a better parent, I would have. But unfortunately, my choices didn't allow me to be.
Got it.
But I had an awesome mother who raised those boys with love and gave them a solid foundation. Who taught them. I'm so grateful for my mom, who's no longer here, but she never gave up on my boys, and she had all 3 of them. She kept them together. She's like, Nick, no, if you can, I would take all 3. I'm not taking one. One is not good in foster care, especially when I had the youngest one. It's just like, no, I'm going to take him too. So I had an awesome mother. But during Rico's death, of course, I questioned myself. What could I have done differently? If I wasn't strung out on drugs, would they have not gravitated to or be in a lifestyle that would cause their death, or even to an extent? But I knew, getting clean, that I cannot cry over spilled milk. So no, I did not pull that trigger. So no, I do not blame myself. I have forgiven myself. Rico had forgiven me. My boys, I was clean when Rico died. I was drug-free, and I was very much in their lives. And Rico, every day, told me he loved me. We had already had that conversation. He had already forgiven me. It was nothing that I wish I could have said, or something that wasn't said that I wish it could have happened. No, everything had already been said.
Yeah.
So he was proud of me, and he had forgiven me. So
that's really all you can ask for.
And that's all. And that's all I needed. And that's all I needed. And in times, the way I look at my other boys today, forgiveness and constant support. Yeah. So no, I don't blame myself. I don't question my parenting. I knew that I was incapable of anything other than I was able to give because of the choices I had made. I couldn't be a good parent because I was riddled with drugs. I couldn't fight that.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I just couldn't be both. You can't be an addict and a good parent.
Yeah.
So the choices I made was the best way I could be a parent.
But that time that once you got clean, and that time that you spent with your family, no one can ever take that away from you, right? And that forgiveness that your son gave to you, how did that feel after having that moment of him saying, I forgive you?
It was great, especially when I heard his friends saying, Rico is so proud of you. Rico is so proud of you. I remember running 24th of May and then dancing in the parade, and he rode his push bike down in the rain with me when I got down on Front Street. And then you had Zachary and Sky at the finish line waiting for me. It was just like, my boys, they just loved me. They loved me till I learned to love myself. And that was the most amazing, it's an amazing feeling. Because I see so many parents that try to get a relationship with their children after addiction, and the children, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And a lot of children don't.
Yeah.
a lot of children find it hard to forgive their parents.
Yeah.
Because we do some damage. We damage our children when we make choices beyond them. We damage them. Yeah. But I had a mom that showed them that your mom does love you. She's just making bad choices right now. Yeah. So I don't know, but I was just one of the fortunate ones. And my boys just automatically allowed me back into their lives.
No, that you're absolutely right. I think a lot of times people don't forgive the parent when they're going through that, because people don't understand that addiction is a disease, right? Yeah. And yes, you did make the choice to start taking the drugs, but once it takes over your life, it's literally that. It takes over your life. And so, because we've seen it most recently with Simone Biles and her mom trying to come back in her life, and one of her siblings being open to it and her not. On what we see, actually, because we don't know for sure, right? But, you know, with those things, like, you're absolutely right. People go into situations that they have to deal with to cope with parents who are addicted. And sometimes you're just not as forgiving, especially if you remember certain things. So I'm so grateful that you were able to have that with your boys, because, you know, it could have been a different process post his death rather than where you are now.
Where I am today.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. So after, obviously we've covered a lot, right? Okay. And one of the biggest things that made me want to reach out to you was your advocacy around support when it comes to just mothers who have experienced violence, period, right? Not just gun violence, but violence, period. And I think, and again, I know I said it already, but you've been through enough to not have to advocate. You know what I mean? Like, you could crawl into a bowl and no one will fault you for that, right? So where do you find the courage to be an advocate now for community support and trying to end this gun violence, or just violence, period, and this gang culture that we currently have in Bermuda? Where do you find the strength to do that?
Well, when it happened to Miss Otterbridge and I, we looked at each other and we had this like, what do we do now? Because she was my neighbor and we came up, it's like, where do we go? Like, it's nothing for us. Wow. And so we brainstormed and we wanted to start a support group for mothers that have lost their sons to violence. Wow. And so we started it, and I remember every time it was one, like, 'cause I remember sitting down in the hospital, like, no one understood. It was just Miss Otterbridge. She knew, and I knew. Mm-hmm. But then how about those mothers that sit there with no one that can really, because a mother feels completely different. A father has, I can't speak on a father, but I'm sure it's just as deep. Mm-hmm. But I know, for me, just being there to let someone else know there's hope was very important to me, because I looked around and I had to find my hope. Was no one there to tell me it was hope. Yeah, I looked for my hope and I went to God. So I found hope. Yeah, but a lot of people don't have that. Yeah, don't that go straight to Him. So if I can just be in the presence or just be close by, so that I can let someone else know that they're not alone. Because that was the most loneliest place to ever be. Like, I had the utmost support, but not one of those people that supported me had been sitting where I was sitting. Wow. So I still felt so alone. And that was one of the hardest things. Yeah. Although I know you want to help, but
you haven't been in my shoes. You never walked in my shoes.
You haven't. So I just wanted to let someone else know, any mother know that you're not alone. No one wants to be, no one signs up to be a member of Mom Bermuda. You know, it's not something that, when I grow up, no. But it's available. And with my years of doing a 12-step program, I understood the importance of support and being around like-minded people in the struggle together. And that's what saved my life. So I want to be there for someone else in a similar setting around grief and loss.
So you mentioned, and we talked about it earlier, Mothers on a Mission, Mom. And what would you say has been one of your most significant or meaningful, I should say, experiences through Mom that have helped you in your own healing process?
Yeah. The mothers that come out, I have an awesome committee. The mothers that come out, but the most rewarding one was when we first done our murder kid. And it was 2020, the year Clarky had died, and we're in no cop match, it was COVID.
Yes.
And I wanted to do something just to remember the boys on Emancipation Day, just to honor all those that were lost their lives to violence. I didn't want this island to forget what is happening, and just to bring awareness and for them to remember. So we done this murder kid, and the mothers that came out and their stories and their support, and just so grateful that we even exist.
Yeah.
It was so rewarding, because enough times I wanted to just throw in the towel and say it's not working. But this year, once again, we had one mother that came out. She said, she hit me up the morning of. She said, God said, I'm ready to do it now. What time does the murder case start? And I have been inviting her. She knew about it, but she said she's not ready. And if we do it, if one person gets healed by it, then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
So we travel the whole island. Just remembering all those that have lost their lives to senses. I mean, each one is senses.
Yeah.
Senses. And but we also have a support. We have a monthly meeting once a month at CURB, in the CURB building, CURB office. Just for people, if you're ready to come, men or women. It's not just for mothers. It's for anyone that has been affected. Yeah. Whereas this violence has taken a toll on you. And we have trained counselors that will be there to help you and assist you, whereas we can't.
Yeah, and that's important.
Yes.
Like, what would you, I guess, what kind of long-term support do grieving families, especially moms, need from the community at large when after losing a loved one to violence? What would you say that is?
Acknowledgement. Constant, acknowledge that it happened to us. And let us know that you haven't forgotten us. Because we have a whole community out there that this island has forgotten. Like, I don't get nothing anymore from government officials. Nobody. But left to deal with this totally on our own.
Wow.
We don't get, I'm not asking for, like you said, I'm not asking for pity. I'm just asking for acknowledgement. And if we need support, there's a lot of families that need support. I'm okay. But there's a lot of families that need more than me. We can't afford counseling. Counseling is
very expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
We're not even offered free counseling to help us to get back on our feet. We got a handshake, we got a condolence, and that's it. And I think that's what's hindering a lot of people to heal, because acknowledgement is healing. You know, if you just acknowledge that I'm hurting, makes a difference. You just acknowledge that the pain that we're feeling is real, it makes a difference. But if no one is acknowledging them, we're just sitting in it, and we're hurting, and we're getting angrier, and we're going deeper and deeper. And the deeper we go,
it's harder to come out.
And not only that, it's harder to be responsible parents to the other children that we have.
Yeah. Who were also affected by the
who were
death.
also affected.
Yeah.
So it's a domino effect
Yeah.
that if we can't heal, our
Mhm.
children are not healing. That was one of my main things. I could not destroy Skya and Zachary's life through not healing myself first.
Mm.
They needed to know there's healing.
Mhm.
You can get through this.
It takes an incredible amount of strength. Definitely. Yeah. So I guess when we're looking forward, right, what are your hopes for Bermuda in terms of addressing gun violence and the impact on families? Like what is your hope for our country when it comes to what we're dealing with when it comes to this violence?
Okay, it might sound far-fetched, but I really believe it's a spiritual warfare.
Why?
Because we're fighting some demonic spirits. These are good kids that have been overtaken by a spirit that is beyond us.
Okay.
I do believe God makes no mistakes in having kids and bringing kids to this world.
Okay.
And I believe that there is a demonic spirit. And until we get a hold on the spirituality of really what is going on in this little island, then we will always constantly be running around in a circle and on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Or on a hamster wheel. It's spiritual. And I think that if everyone can get a spiritual connection with themselves first, because that's what happened with me. I had to find out who I was spiritually in order for me to walk spiritually. And I walked with the devil for many years. My thinking, my actions, my thoughts were definitely demonic because I would not even think about doing that today.
Yeah.
You know, but because I was in it, it seemed okay. Yeah. It was acceptable because of the lifestyle I was in. But that was definitely demonic behavior.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I now am walking spiritually in more of light than darkness. My heart goes out to people that think that what they are doing, young men and women, think that what they're doing is okay. It hurts because they're battered, because they're tapped into a spirit that is controlling them.
And some of them just don't know any different
And
either.
some of them just right.
Yeah.
Learned behavior.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, same with me. Learned behavior. It was acceptable in my house. Alcohol was acceptable. This type of lifestyle was acceptable. So, nothing what's wrong with me. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm getting high. That's my thing. I'm not hurting nobody but myself. Why you worrying about me for? You know, until I found a power and a spiritual and a personal relationship with my Father, who has showed me the errors of my ways, and that there is light and hope and love in everyone. So I do believe it is a spiritual warfare we're fighting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to conquer it. I just know that I have to stay on the path that I'm on.
Yeah. So what would you say to anyone who's listening or watching or however they're viewing the program who has lost a child or loved one to violence? What would your words of encouragement be to them post that event, or what advice would you give them?
Don't give up. Do not give up. There's hope. There's support. You are not alone. You are not alone. And God, if He woke you up this morning, He has a purpose for you.
Yes. Okay. And then a question I ask everyone before they leave the podcast is, what do you want to be remembered for? You know, when you're no longer, obviously a very long time from now, but when you're no longer on this planet and someone says, Nicole Fox, what do you want them to say about you? What do you want your memory to be once you're no longer with us?
You know what I've always said? I wanted to leave a part. Let me just put this in there. I'm so glad you said that. My years in addiction, I always said I was afraid of one thing, and that was dying in addiction. because I never wanted to leave that legacy with my sons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to say, you know, Nikki, she used to get high, she OD'd. I don't want them, that's her son. You know the girl that OD'd.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted, even when I was getting high, that was still so much forefront. I never wanted to leave that legacy with my boys. So now I want to be known as just a good person, good spiritual person. I wanted to leave a legacy of you can get through anything with Christ, with God. Like, I just want to be remembered of letting go and letting God. And can get through any adversity. Because we're a family, we don't give in, we don't give up. Period. I tell my boys that all the time. We don't give in and we don't give up.
Not at all.
Period.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you for
I really do
me.
appreciate you coming and spending some time with me today.
I'm very honored.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, guys, we just had the amazing Nicole Fox on the podcast today, who gave us an amazing insight into not just what she's dealt with, but also her life in its total. And I'm so grateful for her for sharing her story with me today. If you want to be a part of Mothers on a Mission, make sure you reach out to Nicole on Facebook. She can definitely give you some additional support and help that you may need to get through the difficult time that you're going through right now, whether it's grieving as a mom, as a parent, or as a loved one of someone who has lost someone to violence here in Bermuda. As always, thank you to our sponsors, 59 Front, Brown & Company, Scooter Mart, and the Women's Resource Center. If you would like to visit any of those businesses, please visit their websites. And thank you for spending some time with me today on House to Heart Podcast.